Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. Coming up in today's show, anger mounts over the Trump administration's zero-tolerance stance on migration. A new policy is seeing migrant parents and their children separated at the US-Mexico border. And after Mexico defeated Germany for the first time in a World Cup opener since 1982, we look at how the South American teams are faring in the competition. Plus, with Brazil considered worldwide to be the home of football, we ask, how do those who have to work during the tournament manage to stay focused? But first, our image of the week is of a 2-year-old Honduran child crying at the US-Mexico border. The image has become the face of a controversial new policy by President Trump's administration to prosecute migrant parents trying to enter the US illegally. Well, the parents and their children are split up at the border, with the children housed away from their parents in holding centres. Trump, who's made immigration a centrepiece of his presidency, says he stands by the crackdown. Emerald Maxwell has the details.
This father can hardly hold back his tears. He has just been reunited with his teenage son Kevin after 4 days with no news. The father and son from Honduras had illegally crossed the border in Texas.
It was hard, the hardest day for me. I felt like I was losing my son. That's what I thought. I was going to lose my son.
Kevin and his father are some of the lucky ones. An immigration court decided quickly to move their case to Idaho, where they have a cousin, and they were reunited at a Catholic refuge. Kevin thus avoided being sent to a camp or foster home, unlike more than 2,300 children who have been separated from their parents since the US government brought in its zero-tolerance policy.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility. Won't be. You look at what's happening in Europe, you look at what's happening in other places. We can't allow that to happen to the United States, not on my watch.
There are hundreds of centers like this one in Casa Padre, Texas. Inside this former supermarket, children aged between 10 and 17 receive basic schooling, 2 hours of daily exercise and medical care. But most of them have no more contact with their parents, who are held in detention centers or deported. It's a separation that immigration support groups say risks becoming permanent. After several weeks here, the majority of children are sent to foster homes.
Now, the case of separated children has sparked a wave of condemnation both in and outside the United States. Republican lawmakers are meanwhile scrambling to create a draft law to stem the outcry.
Mr. President, don't you have kids?
As the backlash from his zero-tolerance policy continues to mount, Donald Trump met House Republicans to bring an end to the crisis. The president walked out of the meeting endorsing 2 bills which would see detained families kept together, but stopped short of bringing an end to the practice himself. Republican lawmakers from moderate districts are in damage control and have called on the president to bring an end to family separations while Congress legislates.
I know that the executive branch has the power to end these separations, and they should, at least while Congress is trying to find a permanent solution. But he also said that he doesn't like those images and that we need to find a way legislatively to end this.
Democrats in the House, meanwhile, chastised their Republican counterparts for not bringing about change immediately.
You tell him not to put
about,
agents,
I think he wanted to talk to members.
I hope you tell him, though, about this. You were the one that we were hoping on, and you haven't helped us out on this at all.
As lawmakers from both parties eye the midterm elections in November, the US president is confident his hardline stance on immigration is a winning issue, one his supporters are likely to back.
Some World Cup analysis now, and we start with the number of the week at 9. That's the number of saves that the Mexican goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa made in their World Cup opener match against Germany, which they beat 1-0. Well, the last time Germany were defeated in a World Cup opener was back in 1982. The stunning game showed a determined Mexico side. To talk more about how South American teams are faring, I'm joined in the studio by Simon Harding. Simon, let's start with Mexico. They really pulled this one out of the bag.
Absolutely. No one expected Mexico to win, and the fact that they did it is even more surprising considering that they've only won one of their past 11 against Germany, their last victory coming in 1985. Just a few months ago in the Confederations Cup, they lost 4-1. And of course, it's the manner in which Mexico beat the current world champions, and it's important to say Mexico beat the world champions. That was incredibly surprising. Brilliant attacking football, amazing play, and then that defensive solidity in the second half. Irving Lozano, of course, with that goal in the opening 45 minutes, and you could just feel the amazement when you listen back to the commentary of the games, whether it be French commentary, Hispanic commentary, English commentary, everyone just amazed at what happened. A really phenomenal result for Mexico.
Okay, well, some good news there. Some other South American teams haven't fared quite so well up until now.
Absolutely, and the most notable of them is Brazil, of course. The Seleção, so much emphasis in the build-up to this World Cup, Rochelle, about what Brazil could do, what they should be doing, of course. They haven't won a World Cup since 2002, so the pressure is on. And of course, with their star player Neymar, who's really disappointed so far and who wasn't very good in that first game, which, of course, they drew to Switzerland, 1-1. Brazil, who will have to improve if they want to carry on their hopes of getting anywhere in the competition, and two difficult games coming up, particularly against Costa Rica this week. Another disappointment is, of course, Colombia, who were meant to really fly past Group H and who lost their opener against Japan. Some controversial decisions, of course, into that match, but still the result stands 2-1 for Japan. Colombia, who are at rock bottom of Group H and who will have to win their remaining two games if they wish to qualify.
Simon Harding from our sports desk. Thank you. We're now 1 week into the World Cup, and each participating country has seen its team play at least once. Nowhere has the excitement been as large as in Brazil, who many argue is the home of football. But what happened to Brazil fans who have to work during the matches? Can they stay focused? Well, Wasim Cornet has details.
Brazilian flags, artificial turf, inflatable thunder sticks, and Mexican waves. This Rio de Janeiro startup has opted for a total World Cup experience involving all of its employees.
It's impossible for people to remain focused during the World Cup. Brazilians live for football, and the World Cup is one of the most important moments for us.
The overall sentiment in Brazil is clear. Productivity will likely decrease whenever the national team enters one of Russia's 12 World Cup stadiums. Brazilian companies have prepared for the drop in concentration, however. A survey by the National Confederation of Shopkeepers showed that 1/3 of businesses in the service sector had given their employees the permission to be absent or to watch the matches at work.
We don't have to go to work during games, and we might take half days off depending on the time of the game. But we'll compensate those half days with extra hours on other days.
A whopping 80% of Brazilian households watched the Seleção's opening match on Sunday, but excitement has been lower than in past editions. A months-long political crisis and a difficult economic situation have somewhat put a damper on the traditional Brazilian football frenzy.
Well, that's all for this edition of Inside the Americas. See you again next week for all the news from across North, Central and South America.
Across Africa, presented by Georgia Calvin-Smith.
From North to South Africa, from Bamako to Nairobi, from Accra to Mogadishu. Bringing you all the political, economic, cultural and social news from Africa for a better insight into an ever-changing continent.
Across Africa on France 24 and France24.com.